dressed me today.
I did.
And thank God he's not wearing his pirate makeup.
Pirate makeup is pretty good.
It actually looked pretty cool.
Roland looks good too, by the way.
I got to admit
Katie
that. That's
said-
why I'm getting you all the time. It was cool looking.
I asked Katie, I said, did he pull the toddler card on you? Because she said it was so hard putting eyeliner
I
on
remember
it.
David
Well,
saying,
let me put it to you this
I
way.
said, yeah, I pulled that toddler
He had the
card.
Johnny Depp eyes going.
Oh, I did.
He did. He had that nice
Figure I'm
little
not
flag
gonna
and
miss
everything. All right, let me know when y'all are ready. It's ready? Okay.
He's kind of like,
Look out. Okay. All right, guys. The time is 6:34. We'll now call this meeting to order. Ms. Lorna, would you? Or I'm sorry, Mr. Willis, would you lead us in the invocation?
Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for this morning's rising. Thank you for the opportunity to assemble, ask for wisdom, guidance. In your name we pray. Amen.
amen.
Ms. Lorna, would you lead us in the pledges, please? All right, as I say at every meeting, the rules of decorum are in effect. All right, next up will be citizens' comments. Miss Adrian, you're the only one on there right now.
Adrian Balcom, 1518 Forensic Court. My only thing that I want to address is, since it is kind of a critical thing, we have 205 obviously expanding and we're losing some buildings, and there's been some citizens that were quite upset about that there wasn't really preservation done with the building on Klutz and 205. Now, I know that it was one of the 9 structures that TxDOT said that was going to be removed several years ago. We already knew about their environmental plan. Through that discussion, I wanted to see if there's any way possible that we can have, whether it's our code enforcement officer or someone from the fire department, to take some time to take some photos of what downtown at the time looks like, and then make a conscious effort to request of some citizens that have lived here a long time to see if they can contribute some photography. I did talk to Chief Simmons about having like some sort of wall kind of dedicated in the fire station to honor that heritage a little bit. And I know that you're working on something, Trudy, too, but I just we need something to let them know. We understand, share that your heart is with them, because I don't think that that it's being conveyed right now like it's. So I'm just asking if you can do that sometime this week. Make an effort to say, hey, we're going to have someone out take pictures, and then let them know that these photos will be able to use on some sort of wall. And one thing I've never really had addressed, because we had the previous fire department, they were having different records at the time, is there was apparently some plaques that were on the wall in the old station. I don't know what they're referencing to, because I've never personally seen it, but I was asked about these particular plaques. If we can have Fire Chief Simmons possibly just check the attic or something, or maybe some of the old guys in the past that worked at the fire station, to see if what did they do with those plaques. And it is specifically plaques that were on the walls years ago. So, okay, thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Ms. Trudy,
I got
between
it.
you and city staff, we can handle those pictures
Yep.
and all that? Okay,
Got
thank
it.
you. All right, and that was a great idea, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm all about, we want to be able to preserve our history and have some record of it, especially in a day and age where everybody wants to erase history throughout the world. So, yes, we need to preserve what we've grown from. All right. Before we get into your thing, Lorna, do you think now, or do you want me to do it after that? Okay. For those of you that are here that, Jim, come on in and sit down if you're walking in. You're good. We're just now starting, so. Were you out there on the rec?
Yes,
Okay. All right. For those of you that are attending, if you haven't heard yet, Our city administrator, Miss Lisa, is leaving us. I'm not going to ever hold anybody back when they're trying to better themselves. Okay? If we can do something to keep somebody, we'll make every effort, but I'm never going to stop anybody from growing or bettering themselves. Miss Lisa's going to go on to another city and get more experience with a little bit bigger place, and better herself financially as well as career-wise. But that being said, we talked about giving her something to remember us by. So, Miss Lisa, if you'll join me out here. Council, if you guys want to come out here as well. I don't want to see anybody leave, but we do want to tell you we care about you. We put a McLendon-Chisholm flag and a display case for you. Remember us by. If you want to get out here with the middle of us, we'll all take a picture. I'm sorry, say that again. Well,
I will, just a very, very short one. My time in McLendon-Chisholm has been excellent, and I could not have asked to work for better council members, past and present, and I am sure that McLendon's future is going to be bright, and I'm looking forward to just watching from a little bit afar, but I know that great things are going to continue to happen here. And I appreciate each and every one of you. You've all been wonderful to work with. So I wish everyone the best.
well,
Thank you.
I want to tell you, you made it very easy for us. I can't speak for each and every council member, but for being the new kid on the block that had never been in a political office of any shape or form, to have become the mayor right off the bat, it was a learning curve on the run. You made it a lot easier and kept me a lot more sane trying to deal with it. And I want to thank you very much. You made our jobs pretty easy.
My pleasure.
Guys, you guys want to say anything? Or?
The only thing I would just say, we wish you the best also.
Yeah, congratulations on your new
Yeah.
position.
Yeah.
All right, guys, then we will move on to the next thing. Sean, you're up. It's going to be our update or our status report on the new fire station.
Mr. Mayor, fellow council members, thank you for having this evening. And Lisa, congratulations, and thank you, agency and family. We'll miss you, and so thank you for that.
Yeah, I guess we'll send you an invite.
Sorry I did not make it last month. Some things came up and I wasn't able to make it. So just kind of a last 60-day update. As you can see, a lot of progress has been made. We are still on schedule. At this time of the projects, we all know budgets and schedules get very tight. Nothing's different about this project. Budgets, we are still pretty much on budget. I just want to make you guys aware that we might go over just a little bit. If you guys remember, a few months ago, the council did approve the $50,000 or $60,000 to improve the approach here coming into the station here. So it's not that we're going over budget, it's just that money is being missed a little bit. So we might be coming back just at the end for a little bit, not much. So just make you guys aware of that. It could occur. So we're trying to curb it.
Sean, how have we fared? You know, everybody's heard and seen the things about building materials going up, not only for residential, I'm going to say probably commercial as well. How have we fared through the storm of building materials going through the roof?
We have fared very well. As you know, when we did lock in the price and the contract with Speed Fab, and they couldn't really raise their rates or the pricing because it was locked in because it's a design build.
Okay.
So you had a guaranteed maximum price that they had to get this within. So we are good there. Price hasn't been the issue. It's actually been supply. Last couple months, like I said, we've had to work through quite a bit of just supply chain issues that we're going to really, Chief and I, the last meeting we just had last week, electrical panels is my biggest issue right now, and we couldn't get the guts. We still can't. We ordered in March of this year, still not here from Siemens. So we came up with a plan B, and Chief was gracious enough to allow that to happen because it is kind of a code issue that we're working through. So we will still have the station up and operational. It's just we're going to have to come back at a later date and put in the permanent electrical panels instead of temporary panels. So that's been a little bit of a challenge, but otherwise, and as the overhead doors, you can see the ones with big bifolds in the front, we still do not have the ones from the back. So those have been supposed to have been shipped this week, and so they should be coming in. But otherwise, all the finishes, we actually have the AC units running now. But we have the temporary panel, and we've got power, permanent power over there. So the AC is running. Furniture will be coming about the 15th of November. So we're really getting close. Hopefully, maybe the next council meeting, maybe we'll have a little tour over there before and let you guys take a look at it. But it's coming along quite nicely. So.
Any questions for Sean?
How do we worry about security once we get all that stuff in there? So obviously we don't put it in there until we get the doors.
So right now it's locked up. In fact, that's kind of what I went before the meeting today. I wanted to go make sure it was all locked and there's no entries. So right now, all the interior doors, you can't get into the interior at all unless you have a key, like a core key. So that's what they're doing now. But by the time the furniture and everything gets here, all the doors will be in, the back roll-ups will be there and all that. So it'll be secured. And plus, we do have key card access. It'll be starting to get activated and everything else. So it's good and secure. And that's what Chief and I want to make sure is that we weren't bringing any electronics, all the TVs, all this, appliances and everything else until we were able to get it good and secure.
We were allocated, we had the $4.5 million for the construction of the fire department. This apparently that is going to cost less than that. Are we going to get up to that 4.5 million cost?
Oh, no. Like,
Okay.
we're still, like, I think the original contract for Speed Fab is like 3.6 million.
Yep.
This overage, what I'm talking about is like 20,000.
Okay.
Not hundreds.
Because a little bit is, depends
No.
on. Yeah.
No.
We extended this a couple things. We, instead of partially grassing the yard and dealing with mud issues and erosion, we extended the grass to the ditch down that did from Washington. There's a few things we put in play, and so it cost us additional money. We would actually probably been under budget, which we allocated council before we improved the entryway here to keep that pond.
Yeah.
Pond
Right.
So we're still right there.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, back to yours, there has been a little bit of cost increase in some of the FF&E, like the furniture, the fixtures, and the equipment that Chief has needed. So there has been a little bit of uptick in that, which has kind of drove some of the cost up a little bit. So, but otherwise, like I said, we're doing great over there. Speed Fab's doing great. Everybody's working together. It's a good team over there.
We're getting a lot of compliments. People, calling us and as they drive by saying they love the way it looks.
Well,
The sunsetting, oh my gosh, just across all the windows and everything, it was gorgeous yesterday. Absolutely gorgeous.
Remember that.
kudos to the council and everybody else.
Built a
involved.
gorgeous fire department.
Hey,
Oh, you just managed.
Wow.
anyway,
You might have something to do with it.
AGCM has done an amazing job as well. They've done a great job making sure the city's protected and then getting those things for our buck. And they say it's $200,000 for that before we went vertical on this thing. So they've done a great job.
But just remember, Trudy just coined that, so you'll never live it down. You have a gorgeous fire station.
Get a banner, I'll hang on the front.
See if TxDOT will put that on a map. McLennan-Chisholm, gorgeous fire station.
The area's most gorgeous fire station.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate you. All right, guys. The next thing we got coming up, good friend of mine, considering my brother because of the brotherhood that we both earned a title from. But the next thing is going to be a presentation by Dennis London concerning our local Marine Corps Toys for Tot coordination for 2021. Dennis? There you go.
There we go. Hey, when the light comes on, there you go. So thank you, Mayor, council members. Toys for Tots is a 74-year national charitable program run by the United States Marine Corps Reserve. It provides happiness and hope to less fortunate children during each Christmas holiday season. The toys, books, and other gifts collected and distributed by Marines and volunteers during the Christmas season offer these children recognition, confidence, and a positive memory that lasts a lifetime. Toys for Tots also provides support year-round to less fortunate families experiencing challenges and exceptional circumstances, thus sending a message of hope beyond just the holiday season. It is such experiences that help children become responsible citizens and caring members of their communities. Last year, Rockwall Toys for Tots assisted 1,622 children here in Rockwall County with the cooperation and support of Rockwall Helping Hands and Lone Star Casa. Last year, the Marine Toys for Tots program fulfilled the holiday hopes and dreams of 7.4 million less fortunate children in over 800 communities nationwide. Since 1947, over 272 million children have received assistance. This year, we've been asked to extend our reach into Kaufman County to support their Marines in accomplishing this very same mission. Smoke Monkey Music Hall and Eddie Dean have stepped up to assist us in this endeavor by hosting the Texas Toy Jam on Saturday, November 27th from 1 p.m. till 10 p.m. I'd like to ask everyone to mark their calendars and plan to bring a new unwrapped toy to the event. Also, be sure to come hungry and be ready to be entertained by the musicians who have decided to volunteer their time and talent in support of this event. So far, top shelf talent in music has lined up Kenneth Waters, Don Louie, Weathered Soul, Shade Tree Mechanics, Martin Antonio, and TK Brown, with more artists being announced as we get closer to the event. The Marine Toys for Tots Foundation is a not-for-profit organization authorized by the U.S. Marine Corps and Department of Defense to provide fundraising and other necessary support for the annual Marine Corps Reserve Toys for Tots program. You can find out more information on the foundation at www.toysfortots.org, and you can find more about our local campaign by visiting rockwall-tx.toysfortots.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
What were the times again on the 27th?
1 p.m. till 10 p.m.
1 to 10.
I'm sorry, military 1300 to 2200. Okay.
Sure. Oh. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is my happy smile. All right. And guys, that is Toys for Tots, a phenomenal program. Dennis and I in our active duty time, Marine Corps gets involved in a lot of things. Toys for Tot being our biggest thing, but we also have Marines that participate throughout the nation for Easter Seals, Jerry Lewis Telethon, all these other different causes as well. I can't tell you how important Toys for Tots are. I know a lot of kids have been recipients of that, and they're in awe of receiving that from the Marine Corps. So, get a
Mr. Mayor,
chance to donate a toy, please do.
one
That's
thing,
awesome.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I'd
ma'am.
like to make sure that Dennis meets Chief Simmons, because we could use the fire station as a drop-off point, if you like. And then Trudy is the person that works the,
Yeah, I was gonna have, if we could do like we did last time, have a box here. Sure. Is that okay? And, I'm gonna start separating most of the person in Denver. So if you grab a box and bring it up, that would be awesome.
Yeah, Trudy handles a lot of our, I guess you would call our community stuff. But yes, please contact her to see what we can do with all that. If not, I can give it to you. All right, guys. Moving on to number 7. We've got 7 things on the consent agenda. Is there any council member that wants to pull anyone off of the consent agenda? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve all 7 items on the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve all 7 items on the consent agenda.
Okay, I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I've got a motion and a second. If there's no discussion, all in favor? Aye.
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 All right, show that done. Next thing is moving on to item 8.1, presentation, discussion, and action regarding the fiscal year 2019 to 2020 audit. Ms. Lisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. Apologize for the lateness of this. The auditing company actually finished this about 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, but your agendas have been so full that we just kept bumping it. But I'd like to, at this time, introduce Kyle Caperton and Kyle Alice, I believe he's here too, and they'll give you just a brief overview of our audited financial statements for fiscal year 20. Just push the button over here.
There you go. It's on.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Nice to meet you guys. Kyle Caperton. I'm our audit partner. We've been taking care of you guys for approximately 10 years, and I've been working on your audit since 2013. So I've enjoyed watching you guys grow as a city and watch everything that's going on. That's everything you just said about the fire station. I think it's awesome looking. I love it too. Kyle lives out here in McLendon-Chisholm, so he's always interested in this audit when it comes around. Kyle's another partner at our firm. Kind of handles all of our client services. And so we enjoy and we're thankful that we get to be a part of what's going on out here and take care of your audit. Yes, this is not a typo. That's your 2020 audit. Normally we have these done a lot sooner. There was a lot that went on this year. You guys had a lot going on. We had a lot going on. Everybody had a lot going on. So I'm not going to talk a lot about the numbers because they're very old. But I kind of just mainly wanted to introduce myself to you guys because I don't know a lot of you. And if you ever have any questions, I know you've had a copy of this audit, but maybe you didn't want to ask questions in front of everybody or something like that. You can always email me. You can call our office. We're over in Forney, so easy to get in touch with. We talk with Ray, your CPA, almost weekly on something, and so we usually touch base on how the city's doing. We really like working with Ray. We've had a great time working with Lisa. I'm really sad that she's leaving, and she does a lot for the audit because we're asking for a whole lot of stuff, and she's pulling a whole lot of stuff for us. So that's going to be sad to see Lisa go. But guys, if there are any questions, if you've looked through this, or if you want to ask them now, I'll do my best to answer them now. Otherwise, I'm going to let you guys send me an email or call me if you have questions on the audit. I know y'all got other important things to get to tonight.
Any questions, guys?
No. When do you get started on next year's?
Right? Almost now. We should
But I
be
figured.
almost starting now. But we got to get you guys an engagement letter. I don't know if y'all are going to go out for bids. So y'all will want to gather all that information. You'll let us know hopefully in the next month if you accept it. And then we'll start working with Ray when he's going to have the year closed. That's usually in December or January. And then we just start, we give a list over and we start working through it.
Good deal. Good
Great.
deal. All right, guys. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, the other half of the team, where do you live here in McLennan-Chisholm? Okay.
Yeah. Do we need a motion?
I would move to accept if you're so inclined.
Okay, I'll look for a motion to accept the financial, or the audited financial statement.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the FY 2019, FY 2020 audit as written.
I've got a motion, do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. If there's not any discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, show that unanimous. All right, we'll move on to 8.2, receive a report from Fire Chief Simmons regarding fire department fleet. Chief?
Thank you, council. Just to kind of give you an update and then kind of ask for some guidance. We currently, you know, a few months now, engine 222 has been in service. Engine 42, which is, that's why I speak loud.
Here.
So,
Here.
all right. So engine 42 is still in the shop. It's been there for a couple of months now. That's the other other engine that we have. We had the fuel system correction, and then once we got it fixed, then we had a high pressure oil pump failure. So it's had to go to another shop. So that one's still in the shop. We hope to get it back soon. We still have a reserve engine in play from Siddons Martin. They're allowing us to keep that reserve engine to where if something was to happen, that we still have a backup engine to fall back to. I know we talked about in the past and had some discussions about fleet and getting rid of a few engines. We have 2 engines. I had some pictures, but I didn't get here in time because of the accident, so I apologize. But the old engine 41, which is a 1995 Pierce, and then the 2006 E1 that we had bought back in 2018. Now with the engines that we have in place, we are to the point where we can go ahead and look at getting those sold. Some estimated values for the 2006 roughly right now is just sitting around $15,000 to $20,000. That's about all we can get for it now. But what I'm looking for is council is for your permission to go ahead and start moving forward and getting this out here. I know there's one company that has asked several times in regards to buying the 2006 E1. If they were to buy it, it would go to Mexico. They buy those engines and they send them. The 1995, there's really not a market for it. It's a 1995. So there's really not a whole lot of market. We want to see what's out there. I know a local academy has offered up, Fire Academy has offered up anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000 worth of training credits. Not necessarily cash, but training, which would allow us to continue to advance the training of all our members and staff of this department. So we're going to look at some of those things as we go here in the next couple of months. I know if once we get to a point where we decide to sell one, we'd have to have a resolution drawn up and completed in order to make that happen. Is that correct, Ms. Lisa?
Shelley and I have talked, and I think Michael Hollow would be included at some point, but I think you should do a resolution for surplus items, and then go ahead so that we can get those things off of our inventory list. And then that way officially, we've gotten your approval to dispose of them appropriately.
So we would do all the city surplus, things that we have, not
There's
just the
some
engines,
old audio
Okay.
visual equipment now that can go.
Do it
It's
all
just a
in one.
clean process.
Just take it all in one.
Yes, we have a few things that probably just we don't need anymore.
Right.
You may want to wait till you move into the station, so there may be a few other things that.
To sell some of
To
that
get rid
stuff,
of,
yes,
yes.
yes, absolutely. So that's just to kind of give you an update. Once we're done and we get rid of additional apparatus, our fleet would now be 2 engines and 2 brush trucks. The squad, as we call it, Squad 1, the plan is to convert that into a rehab vehicle. So that
What do you
would,
mean by rehab?
so rehab, you heard of CERT?
Yeah.
So CERT is to build a CERT team, and they would be our local in-city, in-fire district rehab. Anytime we have a large incident, or like the last structure fire that we've had that we called Rockwall CERT out, we would have our own in-city, in-district CERT team, and that vehicle would now be commissioned to kind of go over there and fill that role for the city's needs, a utility vehicle.
But that was one that we were considering selling.
That is one that said could possibly be sold, correct. Since then, after going back and looking at the item, looking at the fleet and deciding what's going to be best for the department, it was decided to keep that and now make that a search vehicle or utility vehicle, rehab vehicle.
So,
Is the 2004 engine one that you're going to try to sell?
Correct, sorry, 2004, I think I said 2006.
All right, I'm just going off of sheet
Yes,
of
ma'am.
paper that I have.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're going to try to trade in the pier, or you're going to try to get some money for the piers.
Yes, ma'am.
If we don't get any money, then you're going to come back to us and suggest that we get into a written agreement with the fire school about in-service, switching out, about trading off the equipment for training.
For training, thanks, to the cash training,
But
training money.
definitely a written.
Absolutely, no, absolutely, it would be something to be brought before council to make, to agree upon.
And then what about the 2009 brush truck?
Yes, ma'am, that's still there, the 2009 GMC,
Yeah, because that was one you also suggested we sell
mentioned
to,
that we could possibly sell, yes, ma'am.
but you're not, you don't want to do that
I
anymore?
highly recommend keeping the 2 engines and 2 brush trucks, that would be your fleet for a while now, so.
I would probably want to keep 2 brush trucks.
I'm just going back because when we
No, I
agreed
know.
for the purchase of the fire truck, we
Right.
said that we were going to be doing these things,
Sure.
which made
These
the
were-
cost of the fire truck a little bit
Go
less
down,
money.
Right.
These were trucks that we could possibly sell
Mm-hmm.
if that was what needed to be done. So since then, assessing the fleet, I highly recommend having your 2 engines and 2 brush trucks. That way you always have that backup apparatus. Just like Snowmageddon, we were out an engine. We didn't have a reserve engine in play. It was out of service. So we were stuck for a little bit until we were able to get a reserve in. So, and most recently when it went down, engine 221, the new one wasn't here yet.
Yeah.
And so luckily we were able to pull back that reserve engine again and put it in place. So I highly recommend keeping 2 engines and 2 brush trucks would be your fleet at that point.
Just for the purpose of knowing, for the knowledge for the council, just kind of give us an idea, if we chose to not keep a second brush truck, what would the dollar value be
Anywhere from 40 to 60,000,
if we got rid of that one?
possibly.
How much to replace it?
How much to replace?
Yeah, say we had to get it.
About $175,000.
So about a third the cost.
And with that
Well, we'll
vehicle
get-
being a low mileage vehicle, it's a good vehicle to keep, just to have as a support fleet. There's
And
been
that's
many
one that
times-
we got from when the MCVFD was dismantled.
Correct.
Could we get a new summary of the inventory?
Sure, absolutely. It's a current, the trucks we have on is current except for 221, but I
Yeah,
can
with
give
the game plan
absolutely.
and the potential cost savings.
Right.
I'd like him to bring that back to us so we had
Absolutely.
it on a sheet of paper so we could actually look at it.
Absolutely.
A little bit more
And I was
thoroughly.
just to kind of give you an idea and let council start, give guidance to where we can start looking towards taking those steps to get those 2 engines for sure.
Yeah,
So-
I don't see an issue with the one you're talking about selling, but I'm in agreement that we need to crunch that just a little bit more and look at it before we say
Absolutely.
you're good to go.
Ultimately, you have the final say.
Well, it's just been a shame that one that was purchased in 2018 was such a piece of
Well, I won't,
not usable.
I won't say that. I won't say that. I feel that they have done exactly what I expected them to do.
Yeah.
I think in the meantime, we could probably still work on the Pierce engine, right, and just look at the market and get rid of that.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's the 2 engines. That's
definitely.
the 2 primary ones, the 2004 E1 and then the 1995 Pierce.
Yes, if you could come back to us with a clean spreadsheet with your game
Absolutely.
plan, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it, Chief. All right, we're going to move on to 8.3, presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding a development agreement between MC Triology LLC, Texas Limited Liability Partnership, and the City of McLendon-Chisholm is related to a development agreement for approximately 179 acres located in the City of McLendon-Chisholm and approximately 575 acres located in McLendon-Chisholm's extraterritorial jurisdiction, or the ETJ. All right. Who wants to speak first? Gonna let Misty. Okay, that's fine. I'd have to get up there and look where the button is. There it is. All right, it's on.
Misty Ventura, 9406 Biscayne Boulevard, Dallas, Texas, 75218, on behalf of the applicant, Huffines Communities. We have before you an amended ETJ development agreement. When we were with you last, we had completed or nearly completed our legal review, and the last step before consideration of the agreement was to complete the planning review. I believe your planner, Michael Coker, has reviewed and provided comments. A memo is included in the packet. The applicant responded to those comments. Many of the suggested changes were made. Some were not. Those that were not made primarily fell into two buckets. One related to lot size, and as a reminder, notwithstanding the comments from the planner related to the city's comprehensive plan, this property is in the extraterritorial jurisdiction, not subject to zoning or land use restrictions, as you would see in an in-city project. I think the second primary comment that we declined to make was respecting duplicate fees. The request was that we have both a TCEQ inspector and a city inspector, and we're happy for the city inspector to be TCEQ certified and do both inspections, but we're uncomfortable paying twice for inspections, and we're obligated, because the district is going to own and maintain the public infrastructure, to have a TCEQ inspector, certified inspector, inspect those improvements. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but I think that we have addressed the vast majority of the comments, and we would respectfully request that you approve this ETJ development agreement.
Yeah. I think there might be some questions in a minute, Misty.
So, one of the things I had requested that Ms. Ventura provide for us was an exhibit of the concept plan that we could actually see. And she did. And here it is. And the green part is the part that is in the extraterritorial jurisdiction. You've got a portion here and a portion here that are currently in the city limits. They haven't color-coded those. And one of the things that I mentioned, you wanted this close enough you can actually see, or should I just say that?
Yeah, up there.
So one of the things that I have been concerned about was the lack of detail in the concept plan. And I think I made note of that. And Ms. Ventura is correct. This is not in the property that's highlighted in green is not in the city, but the part that is not highlighted that's in the city of McLendon-Chisholm is just shown by kind of a leave out. And I've reviewed a lot of development agreements over the years. And this concept plan has the least detail of any concept plan that I have ever seen. And what I've recommended that the council consider is using as a guideline for the concept plan that it include both the in-city and the part that's in the ETJ, and then conform to the concept plan standards that we have in our zoning ordinance. This is not zoning then, because it becomes part of the development agreement. And I think it's perfectly legal to do that, to have much more detail. And this concept plan doesn't do anything but tell, I think the engineer for the Huffines group told me today that it's really more of a bubble plan, and I agree that it is much more of a bubble plan. It doesn't give you very much specificity, other than it's highlighted in light green as residential areas. Historically, I've seen much more detail in concept plans that are part of a development agreement. Now, they do have specific regulations about what they're going to build there, but they haven't laid out any of where the local streets go, for instance. And so I think I recommended that that they comply with the standards that are in our zoning ordinance as a function of how the concept plan be prepared, and that they do that, so that the council and actually the Planning and Zoning Commission have an opportunity to understand what's going on there. Second thing on the concept plan. The development agreement, the way it's crafted today, suggests that they can amend the concept plan anytime they want, and we don't get to see it until they submit a plat. And I think that that's not good for the city. I think that we should do what we normally do with concept plans, and that is, if the Planning and Zoning Commission gets a chance to review it and make a recommendation to the council, then the council gets to say yes or no with that. And on top of that, those records are held by the city secretary. And my guidance to the council is that we should do something that is similar to that for a concept plan that is a function of the development agreement. And if you read into the text of this, there are standards by which this property becomes part of the city. And so it makes much more sense for me to understand and for you to understand what their intentions are with each piece of the property, whether it's in the city or not in the city, as we're going forward. And I think that the development agreement, if it has that kind of specificity, is a whole lot easier to understand for all of us. And I'm glad to answer any questions that the council might have on that.
May I address some of those concerns?
Can you turn your microphone on?
I thought y'all were coming into the city. That was that's.
So that is correct.
Okay.
But it's a process. So let me start with the foundational concepts and explain the pieces that were just reviewed by Mr. Coker. You have 179 acres within your city limits. That in-city property is referenced in this ETJ development agreement for the sole purpose of referencing fees and infrastructure development standards and the district ownership and maintenance of those public improvements. None of the land use regulations for the in-city piece are included in this ETJ development agreement.
Why would we have two development agreements? Why not just have one?
For this reason. There is a state law prohibition against contract zoning. So this is a specialized type of agreement. It's only authorized by 212-172 of the local government code, and it only applies to an owner of property in the ETJ and the city in whose ETJ the property is cited. There is a separate second process for in-city property. You cannot, by contract, zone property. You have a state law process and a local process that requires two public hearings, one in front of P&Z and one in front of council. After we complete the ETJ development agreement, the next step is to zone the in-city property. After the in-city property is zoned through the city's normal process, which includes a public hearing at P&Z and a public hearing at council, I would assume, and we know this because we've previewed several months ago a draft of a PD zoning ordinance with the city, that in-city zoning would take the form of a PD that has the same level of detail as the development regulations attached to this ETJ development agreement. So first step was you consented to the creation of the in-city districts. Second step is review and hopefully approve the ETJ development agreement. Third step is zone the in-city property. The fourth step is to create the district. And then after the district is created, the property that's in the ETJ will be voluntarily annexed into the city limits and into the district and zoned. So we are at the second step, and there are lots more steps to come, what this agreement contemplates is that all of this property will be developed pursuant to the development regulations that are attached to this agreement, which gives you certainty and land use control that you don't otherwise have in the ETJ because you don't have zoning in the ETJ. So we purposefully did not include the in-city development regulations on that concept plan or in the four corners of this document because I believe that would be contract zoning that could void the entire agreement.
But the other draft development agreements you've done have included both the in-city area and the ETJ area.
Not for land use, for the district consent and for other matters, but not for the land use. So ETJ development agreements are authorized by 212-172 of the local government code, and the development regulations are limited to the ETJ property.
Your attorney is also online here if you need him.
Michael, what do you have to say?
Yeah, so I don't disagree with a lot of what Misty was saying. The actual, we have to remember that development standards and, certain things can be included in the development agreement. Whether we're going to have light industrial, heavy industrial, single family 2, single family 3, whatever, those types of things cannot be in the development agreement because that's actual zoning. We have to have an idea of, and that's why it's included in the development agreement, of kind of how they want to develop their subdivision, their project, whatever we want to call it. We have an idea, so we understand like density. So what I saw from the agreement is that everything within the city limits is exactly what we expect from density. They're meeting our subdivision ordinances, they're meeting our new comp plan, all of that.
Michael, we have not seen that.
Do what?
We have not seen that.
Okay, Misty and I have discussed that, and my understanding was it was fully agreed that they're in accordance inside the city limits, 179 acres. We're good to go inside the city limits. It's where we get into our ETJ where we have room, quote unquote, room to maneuver according to our new comp plan, and that's what we're going to do in the ETJ. So, Misty, can you confirm to council that that's what we have, or maybe I'm misunderstanding it?
You are not misunderstanding. The process in Article 3 of the agreement discusses the in-city and the ETJ property, including the applicable regulations and the development process. In addition to that, the provisions in the agreement that relate to annexation in Section 7.3 confirm that the property has to be zoned in order to satisfy the conditions. So there is an expectation and there are words in this document related to the in-city piece, the in-city districts, the annexation of the property, the zoning of the property. So much of what's included in the four corners of this document relate to the project, both the in-city 179 acres and the property in the ETJ today. What does not relate to the in-city property is Exhibit D as in dog. All of the development regulations that are included in this agreement relate exclusively to the ETJ property. Because you don't have zoning and you don't have land use control in the ETJ, and the comprehensive plan does not apply to the ETJ. But the consent resolutions that you approved at the last meeting, the recitals in this agreement, the draft application that Matt and Sam have been working on, that you will see hopefully at your next meeting, well, you won't see it because it's got to go to P&Z first, is a zoning change application that's consistent with your comprehensive plan, that honors the commitment we made in the last meeting, which was to have minimum lot sizes of 1 acre on the in-city property. That That minimum lot size on the in-city property is not in this ETJ development agreement, because I don't think as a matter of law I can include it in here. But I assure you it will be in the zoning application, and if it's not in the zoning application, you're not going to improve anything else, because you'll look at me and you'll say you're a liar, right?
And don't, real fast, sorry to interrupt, Misty, but don't forget, council, even if you approve this development agreement, you're not bound to approve, and I don't know if I should be saying this in front of everybody, but I'm going to, but even if you approve the development agreement, you're not bound to approve zoning. That's a legislative act. A judge, and I'll tell any judge, I'll tell the Supreme Court of the United States, they cannot force a governing body, a legislative body, to pass a law or not pass a law. So they can't force you. Ultimately, it's still your call. Even if you'd approve the development agreement, they can't force you to pass a zoning and grant a zoning request change by Huffines. Now, ultimately, maybe Huffines, if you don't, maybe Huffines files a petition for disannexation from the city. Okay, that may be. But every developer, I say to their attorney, you roll, like Jack Nicholson said, you roll the dice, you take your chances. So even signing this development agreement, you're not bound to change zoning as a result of this development agreement. And that's kind of what
Mr. Holla is 100% correct.
Contract zoning, it is, you cannot be bound by a contract, signing a contract. We agree by contract, if you do X, we'll do Y. Y being we grant you the zoning that you want. Cannot do that. So even if you did have that provision in the contract, it's void as a matter of law. So ultimately, if you pass this development agreement, you agree to let the mayor, authorize the mayor to sign it, and something happens 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks from now, whenever the zoning comes up, you can simply deny the zoning. They will not be able to build inside the city whatever it is that they're going to build. I simply say that to let you know that ultimately you have, if you like the game of spades, you hold the ace of spades.
Did you, Michael, did you coordinate on this development agreement?
I did. I made several red line changes, and from what I understand, I don't have any reason to believe that she didn't. Misty incorporated my red line changes into that agreement. The last thing we did was a couple of days ago. I believe it was 7.8 subsection C or D. I can't remember exactly.
It was
but that's the House Bill 1929. I've mentioned to y'all before that I was concerned about. So we worked out an agreement on that. So I made several changes, and at least from a legal standpoint, it's, I can offer that up to you as the council for your potential approval. Now, from a policy standpoint, whether you want to, obviously that's up to y'all.
And Michael, do you agree with the approach of extracting from the development agreement the in-city portion?
Right. I think the in-city portion, from what I can tell, again, I'm not the planner, that's where Mike was. The in-city portion, though, does seem to comply with our subdivision ordinance, our regulations, everything for inside the city limits. Yes, Mayor.
No, but I mean, do you agree with the extraction of just having this development agreement cover the ETJ?
It should. I think it's got to cover both the in-city and the
But
ETJ.
it does not. It just covers the ETJ.
So I think there needs to be a couple of points of clarification here. First of all, everything that Mr. Holla just said, he does tell me in every city we work in, but he shouldn't be bashful about saying it in public because he made me put it in the document. So if you read section 7.3A, it says on the words on the paper, nothing in this subsection shall be construed as requiring the city council to adopt a particular zoning ordinance for the in-city property. And so he's preserved that legislative function as a matter of contract, even though we both know that it is also a matter of law. Separate and second from that is this concept of what this document applies to. And we need to think about this document in two parts. The development regulations that apply to the ETJ, which would be akin to a zoning ordinance or a PD if this was in city property. That Exhibit D, those development regulations, only apply to the ETJ property. Everything else about the document talks about the ETJ property and the in-city property. The process, the applicable regulations, the fees, everything else about the document applies to both. But the portion of the document that is exclusively related to the ETJ is Exhibit D, and I think that's required as a matter of law because I don't think you can by contract zone property that's in the city limits.
So I think if I can summarize what Missy's saying, hopefully to help, I think Missy is saying this development agreement applies to both in-city and ETJ on every issue except for zoning regarding the ETJ because we don't have authority to do that. I think that's what she's saying.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Microphone. Where's the part that we talked about that stated that they could change?
That's in the concept plan. Yeah, what was your opinion, Misty, about what our planner said about needing more detail on the concept plan? Because it seems a little sparse to us, or to me.
The concept plan is intended to identify the ETJ property. What's going to be developed within the ETJ property is included in a lot of detail in Exhibit D. I don't think it's appropriate to have the same level of detail in an ETJ concept plan that you do on an in-city non-residential development. I typically see in ETJ development agreements the narrative that you see in Exhibit D and the lot layout, which you might see on an in-city concept plan handled at the preliminary plat stage, because all of the development regulations are in the document.
But most of the ETJ had the pool and the amenity center and things like that. I've just struggled on trying to find out where everything was kind of at. Because it just made me think that everybody's changed stuff. Because I do know that the amenity center has changed, and I haven't seen anything on where it changed to yet. And so that's where I was like, well, what happened? So it was hard for me to understand that.
So with respect to the location of improvements like the amenity center, they're not designed yet. But the criteria by which they will be designed are included in Exhibit D. There's a lot of detail if you look at those.
Sure. Yeah.
And so they're the guardrails. Right. They govern how the property is going to be laid out when it's preliminary platted. It dictates development regulations that you don't have in the ETJ today.
Right.
Lot sizes, setbacks, requirements for open space. All of those things that produce the high quality development that we all want are reduced to writing in Exhibit D. And they will be further evidenced as the project develops. It's just premature to do that.
Right. It's just, it was just hard for me to follow on there, and I just felt like I was not seeing the full picture. And it just, in my visual effects on this, it just seems like an awful lot of houses and very little green space. And so that's why I was just struggling with it.
So we talked about density, I think probably in the first meeting that we all congregated together. And one of the things that we talked about was the need to achieve a certain level of density in order to get the quality of amenities we wanted and to pay for the necessary infrastructure that would accommodate the development.
But it doesn't say like you could put 4 million homes on there.
But that's not true. And this is why. Because if you look at Exhibit D, it says you have a certain type of product that can go on that land.
Yes.
And so if you take that type of product and lot it out, you'll never even get 2,000 units.
So
And-
is there a number yet, or they still are working on that?
The number is constrained by the development regulations, and it won't be more than 2,000 units.
Okay.
In the city, it won't be more than, what was the in-city, 156? Or how many?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's
95,
under
excuse me.
100.
So will be 95 units on 179 acres.
So going to Exhibit D, for example, there's nowhere, there is not a development standard for the 1 acre. It just has, would that normally be in there?
No, ma'am, because the 1 acre lots are going to be in the city limits.
I understand that, but that's
And-
why I'm saying for us, sometimes we're talking about the whole development, sometimes we're talking about the ETJ. And for us, how are we supposed to know that?
We're just struggling with that. That's all. We're just asking for.
I understand that, it's not going to be in the ETJ, but some things are all of Trilogy, some things in here are just for the ETJ. That's hard to distinguish the
What is
two.
it, the development? Is it, what are, there's
So-
2 words.
So Exhibit D are the development standards.
Yep.
And I'm going to pinpoint cite you into the agreement. Give me just a minute. So if you go to 2.1, governing regulations, development of the property and the in-city property shall be governed solely by the following regulations. And then you go to B as in boy, and it says the development regulations set forth on Exhibit D, which shall apply only to the property. So what 2.1B is telling you is that the stuff on D only applies to the ETJ.
So the property is ETJ.
Yes, ma'am.
So those 2 words.
And you find that definition on the first page, the first recital. So you've got Exhibit A, which is the property located wholly within the ETJ, and Exhibit B is the in-city tract. So you have 2 defined terms. Property in this agreement is the ETJ, and in-city property is the 179 acres within the corporate limits.
Okay.
Have I made your head hurt yet?
Yeah, I think I just had a vision of it all being, we're talking about everything. And now I'm having to deal with literally 2 different.
Yeah.
And I think that's, it's just.
But not.
That's just not what I was, that's just not what I was expecting. It's not anybody's fault if that's my fault for expecting.
If I could just do it in one agreement, believe me, it would have been much easier for us too.
Yeah.
I just don't think the law allows it.
Misty, this is one of the larger developments that I've ever dealt with, so forgive me if I don't know all of the process, but on a lot of development agreements, there will be an amendment or an addendum or something down the road that kind of pulls it together a little bit more. So would it be fair to say that maybe as after the zoning for the in-city property, after we get to the point of annexation, after we know a little bit more about wastewater and water needs, that there would be maybe an amendment that would kind of further tighten the development?
That option's available, but that's not typically what I see. What I typically see is this agreement gets approved, then you sort out the water and sewer, and then the property gets preliminary platted. And in that plat process, you have the lot layout, which provides the additional detail related to that. Now, because this property isn't staying in the ETJ, because it's going to be annexed, as part of that zoning ordinance after annexation, you could in that zoning ordinance include more detail, which might be appropriate because we'll know more by then.
Thank you.
My turn?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go back to section 2.1 that Ms. Ventura just talked about. Development of the property and the in-city property shall be governed solely by the following regulations. And she just went over the concept plan is not zoning, it's a concept plan. B, the development regulations only apply to the property, which is the ETJ property. D, the subdivision regulations of the city apply to the property. But then when you go to the next paragraph, with the exception of zoning regulations that apply to the in-city property, the governing regulations are exclusive. And no other city-adopted ordinances, rules, regulations, standards, policies, orders, guidelines, or any other city-adopted or city-enforced requirements of any kind, including but not limited to any moratorium. I read the whole thing, but it gets fairly specific about what's going to regulate the in-city property, irrespective of whether we approve a zoning district for that or not. It says these are the rules, if you were to adopt this. Secondly, I don't believe that a concept plan is zoning. As a matter of fact, when you adopt a comprehensive plan, for instance, which applies only to the city limits, but in our case, we actually have some information that is provided about the ETJ, but we can't enforce the comp plan in the ETJ. But the comp plan says right at the front, this is not zoning, but it tells you what land uses and all kinds of stuff. I don't think a conceptual plan is zoning. I think it could be kind of a preliminary subdivision layout if you wanted to get down to it, but it's not zoning. And I'm a planner. I'm not a attorney. Don't play one on TV. And I think we need to listen to what our attorney says, but my guidance for the council is it would be a whole lot more beneficial to me, and I think to you as a council, if the concept plan had at least a layout of what they plan to do. And secondly, that you had the opportunity to review that plan before they made any significant revisions, because it also says in here that you don't get a chance to do anything. They can relocate open space that they've already got identified, and you wouldn't even know about it until they submit a preliminary plat. And then on top of that, if you approve a preliminary plat, then you have agreed to an amendment to the concept plan. Concept plan is not zoning. It tells the council and the citizens, I think, as a whole, what the developer's planning to do. Not what he's required to do, what he's planning to do.
Can we push this to next meeting, or?
So that's my opinion. It's not zoning. I think providing more detail for both the in-city piece, because I just read the regulations that if you were to adopt this today, you're going to apply to that in-city property. It would be more beneficial, I think, for all of us if we understood how they were going to lay it out. And then if they wanted to change it, let's say they wanted to change the open space down around the lake to someplace else, we'd have the opportunity to review that and see does that make sense or does that not make sense. So that's my guidance for you as your city planner.
So how would you suggest we go about doing that? Do you think we need to have you and Mr. Hollow work with Misty and their engineer? Or
I'm happy to do that to help.
It would be unfair of me not to be clear that we are not going to add additional detail to the concept plan. We are not going to engineer this large, complex, expensive development before this ETJ development agreement is approved. The concept plan, as Mr. Coker has pointed out, doesn't have a lot of detail on it. It's purposeful. It's intended to confirm the open space and the road layouts. And that's it. Everything else is intended to be in the development regulations. So it would be unfair of me to stand here and say to you, we'll work with Mr. Coker and come back to you with a lot layout, because that is not something I can recommend to my client.
But you've gone into enough detail to say how the mailboxes are going to be configured.
Yes, and we did that in order to give you comfort that this is going to be a high-quality master planned community, because you can't provide that level of amenity if it's not. And so the level of detail in Exhibit D was by design intended to give you the benefit of the bargain, intended to give you regulatory control that but for this agreement, without the approval of this agreement, you don't have.
Thank you.
Michael, what's your take on this piece? I saw you shaking your head for a minute.
Well, I don't know if I'm on either side. I can say you're not going to be able to amend the contract. This agreement won't amend the comp plan. Even if it tries to amend the comp plan, 213.003 of the Local Government Code prohibits that. There's a procedure that you have to follow to amend the comp plan, and the development agreement is not going to do that. Okay? Now, I don't know. I get where Mr. Coker is coming from. If I'm a planner, I want more detail. I also get where Misty is coming from. My thing is, what's going on in our ETJ? Does it comport with our subdivision ordinance? That's going to be the most important thing to me. Because also to remember, whereas we really have zero control about things that go on in our ETJ, we do have control over things that are in ETJ when it comes to our subdivision ordinance. So that's really the only thing I'm talking about. Zoning is out the door. We all know that we can't do any zoning in ETJ. So I don't care. Any agreement that purports to do zoning in ETJ, that clause, in my opinion, is void and invalid as a matter of law and public policy, violates Texas law, so we don't have to worry about it. It's done, okay? Usually agreements, and this one does, have a severability clause, which means, hey, if one clause of the 49 is no good, the other 48 are good. So the thing is, does the development standards laid out, I don't care if it's just a concept plan, that doesn't bother me. The development regulations is laid out, do they comply with our subdivision ordinance? And also, and I don't mean in the agreement, I mean for the council to kind of look and see the big picture of things. Okay, this is why, and I don't mean this tongue-in-cheek or sarcastically, this is why y'all's job is really, really, really tough. And people who aren't elected to be in that position don't understand it. And why it's easy for people who aren't in that position to take shots at y'all. So I want y'all to look at the concept that they have in the agreement and say, okay, look, it's better to have some control in our ETJ than zero control in our ETJ. They're doing what we want inside the city limits. Can we live with, our comp plan does allow us to adjust things for what's coming in from the ETJ. Okay, we know that. Can we live with what they're doing in the ETJ and bring it in, since they are taking 179 acres and doing what we want inside the city? That, to me, in my opinion, is the proper legal focus.
There are binding things in this development agreement, however, that also apply to the in-city properties.
Okay. Do they comport with our subdivision ordinance?
Have to ask Mr. Cook.
Yes.
See, here's the thing, and nobody likes to do this, but I think professionals, and I have told y'all this, I've just talked to Councilmember Tucker about this last, 2 meetings ago. Professionals that serve y'all on occasion should be willing to offer their opinion. So the question is yes or no to the 179 acres, the development standards as propounded by the development agreement, do they comport with our subdivision ordinance? That's number one. Number two, if they don't, how much do they deviate from our subdivision ordinance? Because don't forget, this is a development agreement, which is a contract. contract by its very essence demands negotiation and give and take on both parties to work out an agreement that's beneficial to both parties. So if the answer to number one is it doesn't comport with all of our subdivision ordinance, then number two is how far from our subdivision ordinance is it, and what we're getting in return, is it worth it? That, to me, are the only two things that the council can focus on, and only y'all as a group can decide that.
But how can we make a decision on something that we're not privy to seeing yet? Based on what you just said.
I couldn't hear all the question. How can we make a decision based on what?
How can we make a decision on the ETJ when it isn't outlined based on what you just said in terms of not being able to know the details at this point, but at this point we're having to make a decision on something that we don't have the details?
Well, a couple of different answers to that. Number one is we don't have any control over the ETJ. So to a certain extent, and I respect you too much to just say, well, it doesn't matter because we have no control over ETJ. So I'm not gonna say that. You know, so ultimately, if it doesn't comport with our subdivision ordinance, we can also deny and plat, say it doesn't comport with our subdivision ordinance, okay? So that's number one. Number two is, in our ETJ, when you're looking at the agreement, if we say, hey, look, there are certain things that we can agree to change on our subdivision ordinance in our ETJ that we're comfortable with, then we can agree to the agreement. If you're saying we don't have enough information and the concept plan is not enough to know if, hey, you know, the deviation for our subdivision ordinance ETJ it is a good deal for us, that's different. I totally understand where you're coming from. You're saying, hey, look, we're okay deviating from our subdivision ordinance, but just because we only have a concept plan, that's not enough to tell us whether that deviation is a good deal for us or not. I can understand that, and you're right. If that's the case, and if that's what I'm hearing, that's the first time I've understood it. If that's the case, then yeah, okay, say, hey, look, and they don't have to give it, but it doesn't mean you have to say yes. If you're like, hey, look, we understand you can do what you want in ETJ if we don't do this agreement. You can put up a high-rise, 20,000-story building. We get that. We're open to this. We're intrigued by the idea. But before we approve a deviation from our subdivision ordinance in the ETJ, we would like more detail than the concept plan that you've provided us. That I have no problem with that whatsoever if that's what you're saying. But please tell me if I'm accurately saying what you're saying.
But she said that they weren't going to be able to do that.
So I think we're muddling two concepts here.
Could be.
The regulatory control, all the things that look and feel and smell like zoning that would apply to the property are in Exhibit D of this document. And in fact have probably more detail and quality standards than your typical PD zoning. So all of the detail, you know exactly what you're getting down to the type of mailbox. You know exactly what you're getting because it's reduced to writing and bound by contract in Exhibit D. The concept plan is only illustrating two things. It's illustrating open space and road alignments, and that's it. Because we all know the balance of the property is going to be developed as residential, consistent with the regulations on Exhibit D. And what I'm saying, I'm unwilling to recommend and wouldn't advise any client, not just this client in this community, any client in any community, is to add to that concept plan that's illustrating open space and road alignments a lot layout. Because We all know lots are laid out once infrastructure is designed, and the infrastructure is not designed. And so it's premature to provide that level of detail. And I wish Mr. Coker was in every city I worked in, and that every city attorney I worked with believed that concept plans weren't zoning. But starting in McKinney and going south, I can name a dozen cities that would respectfully disagree with that position. And so I'm not comfortable pretending like the concept plan might not be a zoning document when your own zoning regulations reference a concept plan in the zoning regulations. So I think we're mixing and matching different concepts. If the real concern here is that this document doesn't address the 1 acre lots in the city limits, then I think one accommodation that could be made is to say this agreement is approved effective upon zoning the in-city property with 1 acre lots. If that's what the real concern is, there's a way to wire around that in a legal manner. But if the real concern is, I don't want what you're doing on Exhibit D, come back and give me a lot layout, I wouldn't be fair to you or my client if I said to you, sure, we'll do that. We'll come back next meeting, because that is not realistic for the type of project that we're talking about, that is a master planned community designed to be developed in phases over time, that today is multi-jurisdictional.
I, for one, don't care for that y'all can make a decision and not let us know. Like, in other words, you can make a decision and change whatever you want to do without letting us be aware. And that's the part I don't care for.
Okay, so the two things that sentence applies to are on that concept plan related to open space and road alignments. And that language that was cited, let's just look at it together. Okay. 2.2, concept plan revisions. Yep. Revisions to the street layout and the location and configuration of open space are shown on Exhibit C, are permitted without city approval, provided such revisions comply with all other governing regulations. Well, the other governing regulations are your shitty subdivision regulations. And the other governing regulations are all the requirements on Exhibit D. So that is a very narrow constraint. But if that's the concern, you don't want us to amend the open space or the road alignments, then let's take that out.
Okay. We've struggled with another subdivision that they kind of did their own thing and we're just gun shy. And that's what stood out to me is. Okay. We're going to do whatever we want is how I saw that. And that's not what I want to happen.
And that's not the intent.
Yes, and I get that.
Now, you'll get that result if we can't come to a meeting of the minds and get this agreement approved.
You've got to understand that they said the same thing. They said, oh, no, that's not what we're going to do.
So let's look at 2.2 together. Okay. Revisions to the street layout and location and configuration of open space areas shown on Exhibit C are permitted without city approval, provided such revisions comply with all other governing regulations. Shall we just stop and say street layout and location configurations of open space are shown on Exhibit C, and then they have to comply with the rest of the regulations? I mean, the concept, I mean,
we just want you to work with us.
I want to work with you, and I'm confident that you have all the control you need, because as Mr. Coker has pointed out, there's not a lot of detail on the concept plan. It's basically showing you where we know with some level of certainty open space and roads should go.
Right.
But we also all know that that's subject to engineering and studying and alignments, and you get another bite at the apple when it's annexed and when it's zoned and when it's platted.
Right.
And so even if we amended the concept plan with, let's just say we acted in bad faith and said, we're just going to move all that green space over to the Heath side of the project, and we're going to have everything else in McLendon-Chisholm. Let's just pretend that happened.
We're a little afraid of that.
When we come in to annex the property, you're going to say, Misty, yeah, you got to give me a little more assurance about that open space. Or when we zone the property, you're going to say, Misty, we need a little more assurance about that open space. So I'm not concerned, but if the real concern is you don't want us to amend that concept plan without coming back to you, because we know we're coming back to you anyway, for me, that's a so what.
Just,
I get, part of what she's saying.
Yeah.
With the concept plan is, do I want to see things get changed up quite a bit?
no.
But
No.
from concept plan to reality, like she's saying, with guys like Mr. Coker and the engineers and all that, once they get down to the turning dirt, they go, and I mean, use a hypothetical, that straight road that was supposed to be here is supposed to be road A. They realize because of floodplain, whatever, it can't be a straight road now. It has to do this because there's something in the middle that cause that road to not be able to hold up.
Could be
now
a huge rock.
do a different side.
Yeah.
You
But-
know?
and I
If
like-
they have to, they've got to have
That,
some flexibility.
that part I get. It's just,
So let's just, here, y'all been talking and I've been writing.
Matt knows what I'm talking about.
And so, to me, this is what I'm hearing you say. The street layout and the location and configuration of open space areas shown on Exhibit C will comply with all governing regulations. Isn't that what we're saying?
What I'm saying is I just don't want you guys to go change. It's not specifically the streets or the, whatever, but if you guys are making a drastic change and saying the green space that he had, there's like a line of green space, that you're going to cut that in half now, but not tell us.
Yeah, so Michael Hollow would love to file that lawsuit because this is a binding contract.
Well, let's not hope that he has to do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Mr.
He's
Coker.
smiling. He's smiling.
But that's what I'm trying not to get. And I want things in writing and not, I love that you're going to promise me this and promise me that. But I want it in writing.
And I love it in writing too, and better yet, I want to be able to diagram the sentence and have it be objective and clear.
Okay. Just, if there's something big goes on, I just would like to have the city be aware of it.
Michael, you have something?
Yes, sir. So, Ms. Ventura has talked about Exhibit D, which is the development regulations. And there's a section in here, number 2, concept plan. Development of the property shall be in general conformance with the concept plan. Okay? And the concept plan has a street, a street.
Yep.
Okay? And it has green areas that are labeled residential areas. But if I go on a little bit further, what it says here, however, the non-residential uses permitted by this Exhibit D shall be permitted at any location within the property. And the property is the ETJ area. Okay, so that's one thing. They can decide, and we won't know about it until we see a plat or see a zoning ordinance that says that that's what they want. Because by this development agreement, they can amend the concept plan anytime they want, and they don't have to tell us. Okay, but there's more to that. Shall be permitted at any location in the property. Then number 3 is permitted uses. The following uses shall be permitted in the areas designated residential zone. And I showed you this earlier. The light green are the residential zones. And it lists the uses. And so, but remember, at number 2 above, any use can go anywhere on the property.
In the ETJ, right?
In the ETJ. Okay, so going on down, and the following uses are permitted in the residential zone: single family, schools, model homes, accessory uses. I mean, it goes on: sales office, amenity centers, all stuff that farmers market, things that make sense. Okay, then B, the following uses shall be permitted in the area designated commercial zone and at any other location on the concept plan. Okay.
Where are you at? I'm sorry, I've lost you.
Exhibit D, page 3.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you.
And it's B, the following uses shall be permitted. Okay. So, I challenge you to find any place on this exhibit. This is the concept zone, concept plan, where it says commercial zone. Because it doesn't exist.
You're right, it doesn't exist. Because you know, I think Mr. Hollis said this earlier, but I want to say it again. We're trying to give you control in the ETJ that you don't have. And if you don't think that the Huffines and their development team are going to do a quality development, 100% agree with Mr. Coker, don't approve this. But if you think that a developer who makes a multi-generational commitment to high-quality master plan communities doesn't know how to mix residential and non-residential uses, I think they would have been out of business already. I just cannot stress to you enough that if what you need to approve this agreement is the level of detail that Mr. Coker is describing, that I will concede wholeheartedly may be appropriate in the city limits for a non-residential project. Rarely see that kind of detail on residential, but it can be debated. We can all find examples. But I'm just telling you, just tell us no and we'll go home.
You know, we're just trying to understand, because we are the ones that are responsible for making sure this is a good fit for our community. And if we don't feel that we have clear enough information or we don't have enough span of control, we're going to ask you questions.
And that's absolutely fair, and I'm trying to honor my duty of candor and answer those questions as candidly as I can.
And I think we're reluctant to give up our control, referring to the paragraph just above paragraph 2.2 that Mr. Coker mentioned. The governing regulations are exclusive, and no other city-adopted ordinances, rules, regulations, standards, policies, orders, guidelines, or other city-adopted or city-enforced requirements are of any kind apply to this development. And so I think we're...
Let me stop you for just a minute. I think I'm going to ask a question that may relieve everybody on both sides. Michael, I'm going to ask you first, and then Misty, I'm going to ask you pretty much the same question. Michael, everything that we've asked for this development inside the city limits, the portion that's going to be inside the city limits, everything that we've asked for the council, have they agreed to, because you and Misty both work together, have they agreed to what we would need?
Based upon our discussions,
yes,
they have in here those regulations, yes.
Okay.
So now, whether or not y'all, my job was to prepare something from a legal standpoint,
correct,
based on our discussions, and give it to the council, offer it up to the council. It is completely and totally now a deal standpoint, and whether the council wants to accept it or not. If the council, wants to accept it, that's fine. If they don't, I understand some of the concerns that they've said, that they've made. My only advice to the council is sometimes you only have the ability to make a decision when you can get what you can get. If you've gotten what you can get, then you're kind of at the point where you make a decision, yes or no. And I understand what Misty's saying. She's good if y'all say no. I don't necessarily hear the council flat saying no.
right.
I hear the council saying, look, we want to consider it, but we need a little bit more information.
Well,
whether or not Huffines is willing to provide that information.
So my question, Michael, is at this point, as far as the portion that's inside the city limits, they've met what city council has requested. You and Misty have worked. They have pretty much met what we asked for.
From a legal standpoint,
yes,
yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. What we talked about,
mm-hmm,
in my opinion, seems to be in the agreement. Yes, sir.
Now, everything that we've agreed, or that they've agreed to there, being the in-city portion of it, okay? Anything in this particular development agreement that we're talking about tonight that deals with the ETJ portion of it, there's nothing you saw in that language that could counter or override anything to do with the in-city portion, correct?
Oh, no,
Okay.
sir. No, sir.
So anything we're talking about with the ETJ portion of it can't override what we've asked for within the city limits portion of the development. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
And even the concept plans in the 2.2, and I
Correct.
pulled up, looking at it, we're only talking about the concept plans.
Mm-hmm.
That concept plans are permitted without city approval, provided such revisions, comply with other governing regulations.
Right.
So it's only an amendment to the concept plan that is approved on plat that is deemed to be city approved. So that is all we're talking about. That 2.2 does not say they can amend the comp plan whenever they want. That 2.2 does not say that it trumps the subdivision ordinance. It does not, 2.2 does not say they can do whatever they want and we have to just swallow it. That's not what that says. It says they can take the concept plan and change it as they see fit. The concept.
Right. But that is only in the ETJ portion. Pretty much. For the most part, yes.
That is in city as well.
Okay.
What did you say? What did you say, Michael? Did you say for the
The 2.2 does apply to in-city.
Okay. So there could be some variation there, but it does nothing that would violate any requirements as far as anything that we required for the in-city portion of it.
I don't think so. In fact, 2.2 is entitled concept plan revisions. That's what it's stated. So they can change the concept plan, but we have control. In fact, I think it's a violation of the agreement if they change the concept plan. That's fine, but if they change anything else, I think that would be a violation of, because that's not covered by 2.2. 2.2 only covers the concept plan.
Okay. Because what I'm seeing is, and Misty's been trying to allude to it, I can see where we're mixing two things a little bit too much.
Right.
We asked things in the previous council meetings. We've asked certain things to be met from the Huffines group and Misty. Michael's worked with her. They have met what we asked for. So the in-city portion of this development, the part inside the city limits, they've agreed to that stuff. Okay? What this is it talks a little bit about the in-city portion. It talks a majority about the ETJ portion, which we don't have a lot of control over, or basically little to none, for lack of any other explanation. Yes, I get where you're talking about where there's some detail in here about mailbox and stuff like that. I think what we got a little bit hung up on is some of that's a little bit more information to help us feel comfortable that may not needed to be in there because it is a concept plan. I'll be real honest with you. I don't care about a mailbox right now.
Yeah.
Yes, as we get further into the process, we learn more about exactly how the lots and all that are going to be laid out. Because I do understand just enough to know, I mean, if I drive by there right now and see all that dirt in that pasture and the lake and everything else, I'm not one of these guys that understands the lay of the land well enough to know, can I just go in there and plow a road there and start throwing houses up? No, there's studies that have to be done because of the way the soil is, the water tables, all these kind of things, which can change the look of something. I mean, Ms. Balcom and I both live in Sonoma Verde. There are streets in there that when it rains, it's like you're driving down a river. Is that because the street was put in the wrong spot and we didn't know when it was built? I don't know. So things can change a little bit. But we're at a concept plan. They've met everything we've asked for what we want within the city limits that meets what we require. She's right. They're giving us a little more control than they have to for the ETJ. They're asking us to work with them just a little bit. That's all they're asking. I mean, I think we're getting hung up just a little bit. If we need a couple of words changed in there, then guys, we need to ask what that is. Now, to completely ask for concepts on what the lot's on, I'm sorry, but we're at the concept stage. We can ask for an artist rendering all day long, but just like when we've talked about restaurants and commercial buildings and all that, that's just an artist rendering. That doesn't mean that's the final thing. I mean, I can paint you a picture that looks really pretty of a house. That doesn't mean that's what's going to actually be built. You know, that it could be something a whole lot prettier. It could be something a whole lot uglier. You never know. But those are the things. If there's a couple of words in there that need to be changed, then let's just get to it.
Well, I'm not a legal authority.
I know, and that's why we have both
I think that's what
here.
concerns. I'll just say it one more time because I want to make sure I'm understanding what I'm trying to say. I just feel like we have some stuff in here that applies to all of Trilogy, some stuff that just applies to the ETJ. And I'm not of a legal mind to understand the difference between what applies to the whole Trilogy versus just the ETJ.
And I am there with you. I'm not a legal mind. That's what Misty gets paid for on their side of the table. That's what Michael gets paid for on our side of the table. What I do is I lean on the experts. If I need expertise in certain areas and you council members have more knowledge in that, I lean on you. With Michael being our legal representative, the question is, Michael, are you comfortable with everything that's in there at this point? That's where I'm going to lean. And if he says yes, then I'm prepared to move forward.
I think it adequately takes care of us from a legal standpoint, yes. That does not mean that the council as a legislative body thinks it's a good deal for the city. Yeah. That's not my place to say. That's what, y'all decide. But Misty and I worked on that, several different times, trying to make sure that what y'all wanted inside the city was taken care of, and that's there. And then in the ETJ, we understood that we didn't have as much control. So what I understood from council is we were willing to, more or less negotiate. And our comp plan did allow us to, let's say it did come into the city, our comp plan would allow us to make some adjustments on that. And since it was better to have some control rather than zero control, that's what was extended to the ETJ. So that's what I saw in there. And, from a legal standpoint, I think it's about as good as it's going to get. That doesn't mean from a deal. Just because something's good from a legal standpoint does not mean it's good from a deal standpoint. I mean, you got criminal cases, you got an attorney that works out a plea bargain for a defendant, and he may or she may think that's the worst deal ever. So just because it's okay from a legal standpoint does not mean, and I don't want y'all to think, that legal means you have to approve it. It doesn't. It just means the legal concerns are satisfied. The deal standpoint are still y'all.
It just seems like we had more detail 2 weeks ago, knowing how many 50-foot lots, how many 60-foot lots, how many 70-foot lots. We knew pretty much how many. We had a wild guess or an estimate of the numbers of homes, and that's
you're absolutely right. We
that's
did.
not here.
You're absolutely right. We did, and then we told them that was not acceptable because of lot sizes.
Exactly.
Changed a lot of things. What they did was they agreed to everything inside the city.
Right.
There's give and take. Because right now, I mean, the way I understand it, and I'm not the expert, ETJ, they can do what they want.
Right.
So it's like Michael said, do you want some control or do you want no control? That's the key that you got to look at. What I'm going to ask you, Misty, is to be patient with us for just a second. Guys, think about what your thoughts are. We're going to come back to this in 5 minutes. I need a restroom break. So it is 8:17. We're going to talk about a 5-minute recess.
Just as a point of information while everybody's waiting, Exhibit I shows with more specificity the open space in the amenity center that you were looking for, and Exhibit I can't be changed.
I can't be changed? It is hard to read.
Do we have a power cord for that laptop if we need it? Okay, just making sure that we don't, that something doesn't die.
That one is fine, my battery in the last about 5 minutes, that's fine. My solution to me that he's actually running low, if he gets in a place where he can plug in.
Gotcha.
It says now his plug doesn't fit to it. I think you got him for about 11% of his battery life.
All right, is everybody red eye? I shouldn't use that word more. Red eye.
It's official.
Then I haven't called it back to order. That's what I'm saying. Is everybody ready? Lorna? Someone pass that, didn't she? Okay, it is 8:22. We are back.
So,
I think that was in a song somewhere.
So in our, the way the agenda item is written, it says it's a development agreement for the 179 acres in the city and 575 acres in the ETJ. Do we need, that's not really what we're doing, right? We're just doing the 575 acres in the ETJ. Right?
So the agreement applies to both, with the exception of Exhibit C, which is the concept plan, and Exhibit D, which is the development regulations, which apply to the ETJ only and not the city limits.
That is the most clear answer that I have understood. Thank you.
I'm trying.
You are doing great as the night goes on.
Room for improvement.
All right, that was
That was my-
That was it? Okay, all right. Guys, Michael, do you have anything to add to this right now? Because my thing on this whole situation is we've asked and you've met what we asked for within the city, okay, for what our requirements are. We understand that we have very little, if no control over ETJ, and that with this, we're going to get a little bit more control. Michael, do you have anything to add to it before I ask the council what they want to do next?
I don't think so. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think, we are hard and strict, and we do what our citizens want inside the city limits. I think, as you said, we really have no control of the ETJ, so we do the best we can in the ETJ, because ultimately that's going to be good for our citizens as well. I think you summed it up nicely.
Thank you, sir. All right, guys. Misty, first off, I want to tell you, Michael and Misty both, thank you. I know both of you worked hard on this, talking back and forth. I want to thank both of you for working on this. I know that sometimes it's difficult, whether it's us or another city, or it gets difficult going back and forth. I want to thank both of you for the hard work you put into trying to do this. All right, guys. Lisa, we're looking for a motion on this one. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve this. Going once. Going twice.
What is it? What are we at?
3.
8.3.
I'll make a motion to approve section 8.3,
Okay.
presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the development agreement between McLendon-Chisholm, MC Triology, a Texas limited liability partnership, and the city of McLendon-Chisholm as related to a development agreement for approximately 179 acres located in the city of McLendon-Chisholm and approximately 575 acres located in McLendon-Chisholm that's a hard word for me.
Extraterritorial
That's a tongue
jurisdiction.
twist. Jurisdiction.
All right, I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I've got a motion, I've got a second. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote, but what I'm going to do is go one by one so that we're very clear on this.
You guys were talking quite a bit during the break. I was just going to see if there was anything that came out of that discussion.
Okay. I love you, Matt.
Okay. I didn't know if there was anything else you wanted to add to that. That's all.
I would just in a point of order.
Yes, ma'am.
In the motion goes forward, we did discuss previously a potential amendment to section 2.2. So if that is something that the council would like included,
Okay.
I would appreciate some clear direction in the motion.
Remind me what it was we were talking about as far as the change. Because I know what we did, but.
So if I could offer a potential amendment to the motion, it would be to approve the agreement with an amendment to section 2.2 concept plan revisions. The result of the amendment would change the first sentence to read, the street layout and the location configuration of open space area shown in Exhibit C will comply with all governing regulations, which effectively eliminates the developer ability to amend it without.
I like that.
I do too. Norman, would you like to revise your motion with that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the detail word for word.
You would make your motion with language change for 2.2 Huh? As read into the record.
I would like to make an addendum to my motion, in 8.2 as read in the record.
8.3.
8.3, I'm
with
sorry.
section 2.2 in the developers agreement.
With section 2.2 in the developers agreement.
Changes as read into the record.
Changes as read into the record.
Okay. I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. If there's not any further discussion, I'll go one by one on a vote. Trudy, are you in favor? There's an aye. Ryan?
Aye.
There's an aye.
Aye.
Lorna?
Nay.
Okay. I have got 3-1 in favor. Okay. Show that approved with those changes. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Misty, thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your explanation. And guys, thank you for the great questions. I mean, we do have to ask these questions and we do have to get answers. All right. Before we move on to the next one, which is 8.4, let's knock a couple of these out real quick. 8.5, resolution canceling the second city council meetings in November and December. Guys, the way the calendar falls, that second meeting in each month is going to be right on top of the holidays. So normally every year we only have one, unless something special comes up. We don't have more than one in November or December. So I'm looking for a motion.
What days are we talking about having them then? Are we on Wednesdays or Tuesdays?
We're going to be, hold on, I can tell you. I just got to look at the calendar.
Appreciate that.
November 10th will be our only meeting in November. And remind me, in December, is it the 14th or the 15th? 15th.
15th is a Wednesday. Are you back?
Yes.
Still on Wednesday?
It'll be the 8th.
Huh?
It'll be the 8th.
8th.
Will it be the 8th?
Well, the 1st is a Wednesday. So
Yeah,
the
but it's
second
usually the
Wednesday-
second or the fourth Tuesdays, and we've just been bumping it by a day.
So what are we doing on Tuesdays or Wednesdays?
Yeah,
Oh, we're having the meeting on Wednesday.
Hold on. I want to say we're doing it on the 14th. Is that not correct, Lisa?
14th is Tuesday.
Yeah. I think December's the only one where I'm off on one day. Do you have it on the calendar? Okay. I'm sorry, guys. My schedule gets jacked around so much. November's the 10th, which is on a Wednesday. That is already set. It will be the 8th.
November 10th and December
8th.
8th. Are you off?
Uh-huh. Both days, yes. Okay. Then that's set in stone. So I will look at a motion to approve the resolution canceling the second meetings for both November and December.
I'll make a motion to cancel the second city council meetings in November and December.
Okay. Do I have a second? Got a motion and a second. If there's no discussion, all in favor? Aye.
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 Show that unanimous. All right, moving on to the next one. Consider a resolution designating an official newspaper and alternate official newspaper. Shelley, is this just our normal thing that we have to do every year?
Yes, we have to designate our official.
Are we keeping them the same? Okay. So all it is just approving to keep the same newspaper and alternative that we've had in the past. I'll entertain a motion on that to approve.
I'll make a motion to designate an official newspaper and alternate official newspaper.
All right, I've got a motion. Do I have a second? I've got a motion and a second. If there's no discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Show that unanimous. All right. Let's go ahead and do 8.7 real quick. Discussion and action regarding consideration of a maintenance contract with Ardent Associates for an as-needed audio-visual remote and on-site support. Ms. Lisa, this is on the new equipment, right?
Yes, sir. So Argent has installed all the equipment. It's here and it functions. We know that we have had some issues with reporting All of those issues have been proven to be on the iCompass side, which is our agenda management software. What we need is a new encoder. And so what's being held up here is iCompass and I have been in a little bit of a standoff the last 6 weeks or so about to send a new encoder. They wanted me to sign an extension of the agreement. I was hesitant to do so unless I knew the new encoder was going to in fact work.
Right.
We asked them to send it, let us test it out. They didn't want to do that. But after extensive conversations with Argent, the company that installed the video equipment, and looking at reviews and everything that we could find about the new encoder, we feel fairly comfortable that it's going to work. So at this time, we know that Argent has been paid for all of their services, but we're going to need a little help when the new encoder comes in.
Okay.
So
what are we talking about as far as a maintenance contract?
we think that a good portion of that, they'll have to do some installation. That should just be a one-time visit. And they think if any other technical things come up, they can do that remotely. But we're looking for an hourly fee of $340 with a minimum of 4 hours. So I think they'll probably be here the better part of the day to do the installation.
$300 an hour is what they charge?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Okay.
And then any other support, if it's just a bug or something, we're hoping that we can just do that remotely for $75 an hour without the minimum. Okay. So I think Shelley and I are both recommended we approve it so that we can not have to do this kind of thing. With the new encoder, Michael could have been up on the big screen, but we got it working enough and we didn't want to push it. So that's why he's on the little screen tonight. But we think this encoder will fix it all.
On this 4 hours that they're talking about, is that 4 hours minimum, or is that?
It's minimum.
Do they estimate it may go over that, or how long it may take them? Because $300 an hour I get it. I don't like it.
I don't have anyone else to install the encoder with the system.
Okay.
I don't think it'll take more than a day to get it in.
Okay. And then with this maintenance contract, how long is that a yearly contract, or is it just for this that they're doing now?
6 months.
Huh?
6 months. I'm hoping by then that there won't be any more bugs, and that we think everything will be ironed out. We just made it 6 months to just kind of be on the safe side.
Do we need it?
I need them to install this, and then just kind of like we had a few issues with audio here and there, just things not being just exactly perfect. Might need a little fine tuning. I don't expect we'll use them often.
This is only to work with iCompass.
This is for Argent.
Right.
So,
No, I mean, this is for the video system to work with the iCompass software, right?
Yes.
For archiving the videos.
The only reason.
Even though right now we're archiving it through YouTube, which is almost free, or pretty much free.
well, what the agenda management software is just an ease and a transparency issue for the public. So they can just go to our website, they click on the date, the agenda pops up, and then they can stream it right from the website rather than trying to find it on a YouTube channel. We did talk about that option of just doing it directly to YouTube.
I think we should explore that a little more, because most people do it through YouTube, and it's inexpensive, and you can get views, you can review it anytime you want, and it's archived. You can still put a link right from our website.
I think we've come this far, and I don't know that you're dealing with very much more money. I mean, I know that sounds hourly rate, it sounds high, but I don't think it will take them very long to get it in.
Well, a day's $3,000, right? So, and I'm guessing that's per person. No, that's just most companies charge by person, so just ask.
It may not take them more than their 4 hour minimum. I just don't know until they get it in here and put it in.
Here's what I'm going to recommend. We don't have to vote on that. We just have to give you direction on that one, correct?
I mean, it's a contract. I would prefer to have.
Then here's what I'm going to recommend. At $300 an hour, I think we need to set a maximum for that installation. And then the maintenance contract, I get wanting to make sure everything's working. I'm not in favor of a 6-month contract.
And I don't see, what is the contract, what is the payment for the contract? Or is there, it's just an
hourly.
hourly rate?
Hourly. They've actually put in a lot more hours than they originally anticipated.
Sure.
And Shelley and I were pretty firm on, you signed up for it, you knew what you signed up for. We didn't know what all bugs we were going to find in the system, so we've kind of laid it on them pretty heavy. You've probably seen them here at a couple of meetings where we were tired of taking the pressure that it didn't work, so you come here and take the pressure that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But they have put in extensive hours over what they anticipated. So at this point, before they commit to coming out here and doing more, they really just wanted to know that they would be paid for additional services.
They're very good to respond.
That's great.
I called them at 6 o'clock and they had rushed out.
Yes.
So they're very, very good.
So is there a cost associated? If we said we agree to a 6-month contract, is there a cost associated with that, or is it just that we
per hour.
lock them in that they
Just
will
per
do
hour
work?
is used, as needed.
So I guess I have one more question. On the encoder piece, if it doesn't work, are we stuck with it? And how much is the encoder?
There's no charge for the encoder.
The
They're
encoder's
just
free.
swapping out for what we have for a new one.
I'm changing my labor rates. I'm telling you that.
No doubt.
If we could have, we've just spent so much time kind of waiting to get it 100%, and we just kind of felt like we really just need to wrap it up and be done with it.
Okay. Thank you.
If I could find somebody else to do it, I would, but
Are you comfortable with setting a maximum on the amount of hours? Is it $300 an hour? Yes, I get it, maybe a minimum of 4 hours. But gosh, if it took them a whole day,
That's $2,300.
that's a lot of money.
and I don't know that it will be that long. I just
Right.
don't know.
But it'll definitely be for us.
It'll be at least 4, yes.
Okay.
And I think they'll try to keep it within that.
I'll entertain a motion to approve, it's just whether or not you want to put a cap on that part of the expense. My personal feelings is I would cap it at 8. Because if it's going to take them 8 hours, then we got some other issues associated with it.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the maintenance contract with Argent Associates. And cap the
Cap on the
encoder installation time for 8 hours.
I've got a motion with wording in there to cap the installation of the encoder at 8 hours maximum. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. If there's not any discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Show that unanimous. All right, now let's move back to 8.4. Discussion and action regarding adding an option to establish a flexible spending account, or an FSA, with an employee contribution for employees to pay for co-payments, deductibles, and other out-of-pocket health care costs. Miss Lisa, before I turn it over to you, guys, I have this where I work, and it's rather nice to have that. I don't know if any of y'all at your current jobs have an account like that, but I like it where I'm currently employed. It makes it kind of nice. So, Miss Lisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. When we were looking at budget, we did not have the numbers in for the new insurance rates, so we guesstimated that it would be a 10% increase. Fortunately, it came back as a 2% decrease, so we saved in the budget $9,700. What I'm proposing is, even though we saved money, co-pays went up and prescriptions went up considerably. So what was $10, in some cases, we're finding employees telling us they're now $60 because they, instead of a tier system for prescriptions, they now have this negotiated rate. We don't even know what they are until we get to the pharmacy right now, which is a little disappointing. So what I'm asking is if council would like to consider taking that savings of $9,700 and funding for each employee approximately $880 to put in a flexible spending account. So taking the savings that we receive from the premium and pre-funding on a loaded card so that people can pay at the pharmacy or at the doctor's office or whatever the out-of-pocket medical they're experiencing. Just as a little bit of, just passing the savings on to the employees is what it is.
So is it zero sum? Is it a zero sum gain then?
We would write a check for that.
No, but I mean, so we didn't really go over what our budget alignment was by putting in this amount?
No, it would be a negative, a zero impact.
Yeah, the way we were budgeted, this is basically a wash.
Yeah, that's what it would be. Otherwise, you realize the savings. You can realize the savings, or we were just trying to figure out if we could help the employees a little bit just by reducing those out of pockets.
There's no management cost.
There is, but it's built in here.
But it's still built into it? Okay.
Yeah, it's $1,000 to administer it.
Okay. But that's built into the overall.
Right. So that 800 employee would still get the 880 approximately, and that includes taking out the administration fee.
Well, guys, this is another one of those things. It's a fringe benefit to offer employees. One of those things to help,
You don't have to do it next year. This can just be on a yearly
Yeah.
basis. This one actually won't even take effect. I have to give them notice, so it would be December before it takes effect.
What happens if they don't use the whole amount?
Well, the FSA, you use it or lose it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at the end of the year, they don't get it
yours.
anymore.
Okay.
They have, I think, until the March 30th, end of the first quarter of next year, normally with the FSA.
Thank you, guys.
Ours, I think, was September 30th, the way ours rolls, October 1 to October 1.
Oh, yeah.
Or
When
September
this-
30th, yeah. So, I think it's a great idea. So I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
To establish?
To
You gotta read all of
establish
them.
the flexible spending account, FSA, with an employee contribution for employees to pay for the copayments, deductibles, and other out-of-pocket health care costs.
Okay, I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. There's not any discussion. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. We are on the last thing as far as agenda items, and that's discussion and action to accept the resignation of the city administrator, Ms. Lisa, effective November 1.
Yes.
Guys? Huh?
I didn't know if you wanted me to say anything or not. It was a bittersweet
Yeah,
decision.
I'm going to let you talk.
It was a bittersweet decision. That is one I think that I just had to make. So I hope you'll accept it for what it is.
Yes, ma'am. We do understand. Like I said in the beginning, I always want to see people do well, and I'm not going to hold somebody back if it furthers their career, makes them climb up a little bit more financially for their families. I'm not going to stop somebody.
Appreciate it.
I did that for a few years in the security industry that Brian and I both have worked in. Where over the course of 2 years, I went from a $9 an hour employee to a $15 an hour employee.
I do regret the timing a little bit. Unfortunately, I can't do much about that, but I do regret that it's not an ideal time to walk away. But I think with Michael Holla guiding you and Mike Coker guiding you, and hopefully you'll get somebody interim in here until you get a replacement, that you'll be fine.
Okay, well, guys, I will entertain a motion to accept Ms. Lisa's resignation. I know nobody wants to say
Nobody's
it.
gonna
We got to do it.
We don't accept it, you can't step down. That's how that works.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of the city administrator, Lisa Palumba, effective November 1st, 2021.
All right, I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. There's not any discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, show that unanimous. All right, now we're going to move on to 9.1. We're going to adjourn into executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.074A1, personal matters, deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, interim and/or permanent replacement of the city administrator. All right, the time is 8:48. We are now in executive.
Michael Hall said you could just call him.
Yeah, that's
do
fine.
a conference call, and I'll stay out here unless you want me to.
Yeah, you're fine.
Go in there. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Come on, Miss Trudy.
Yes, sir.
Including an exact number of homes, but they can't do it.
Well, I did notice that.
Wait till they come and see.
My God.
Brian, you want me in, see if they want me there, or they want me to stay out here? I'm happy to stay here. You come in? Okay, good. Monday. Yep. Thank you for everything. Hopefully I'll see you guys around.
face here?
Wow. Crickets. How did Tom sell it the same? My son, that's not broken. All right. Okay. It is 9:09. We're back in executive session. All right. No action taken in executive session. We will go down to updates, discussion, and direction to staff. I can't think of any updates off the top of my head. I know we have the Veterans thing coming up, right?
Yep.
That's on Veterans Day.
Yep, at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
11.
I've given no one here speaking parts except for the mayor.
I was trying to get over Shelley's first one.
Don't be good at it.
The bricks are in. They're installed.
Okay, good. Friday, did we secure this Friday?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it a secret?
I don't know. You know you're going to lunch on Friday, Lisa? 12:30.
Where? Is that what you forgot?
Standard service.
Okay. I was like, I forgot already. I knew it was Friday, but I was like trying to not say a lot. Okay. Mom, can I have the city credit? Can I have the city credit card for Friday morning, please? Okay. Guys, that's Friday. We don't have fun and celebrate. It's not no city business will be discussed, no nothing. It's all about Lisa.
Yep.
That's all it is. It is not a meeting. It is not a forum for anything. It is a celebration of somebody. Other than that, I don't have anything, guys. It's Halloween's this weekend. Be leery of kids running around. If they're going to be out there with ghost and goblin outfits, and they're not going to be paying attention to cars and traffic. That's it.
Hello?
So, that's it. Miss Lisa? Miss Trudy, you got anything?
Yeah, I got a lot. Gonna start decorating come November, so the place will be ready. And then, got a few new things to put out. Gonna be looking for cookies, donations, what else? I think that's it.
Have you
Oh.
done anything as far as for our grand opening, whatever you call it, for the fire department? Did we ask you to do anything for that?
I just sent Chief an email while we were sitting here and got a bunch of stuff to talk to him about.
Okay.
So tons of stuff to talk to him about and getting all that done. And then the toys or tots, I sent you something. So yeah, and then the helping hands one also, so we kind of got some issues on that, but
There is one. I got an email for it. You just made me think about it. I got an email for it between you and you. Susan, I may have first name wrong. Naylor. She's a real estate agent.
Sarah Naylor.
Sarah. Susan, sorry. She sent me something. They just recently had the Heroes thing at Harry Myers Park here about a month ago. She's very vested in McLendon-Chisholm,
Yes.
and she wants to start doing that here. She
Okay.
actually talked to Chief, and it was forwarded to me because of our land that we have right here behind us that the city owns. Would be a perfect area for them to have the Heroes Appreciation Celebration, where she would take care of everything of bringing in the trailer for the band and because of the way the space is set up to do it here. She would prefer to do it in our city.
Okay.
So I'll forward that to you too. It's near and dear to my heart because it's about first responders. And
You
if
know,
she's
I
wanting to
think it
bring
should be
to our city-
mentioned, she feeds the firemen every Thursday. She goes and gets them food. She is
She's very vested
a
in our
wonderful, wonderful addition to McLendon-Chisholm, and she doesn't live here. She lives in
She lives in the ETJ.
county.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the
But she
ETJ,
is
but
vested
she
in our
is
city
a
with
wonderful
what she
young
does.
woman to do that.
And the fact that she reached out to us because she would rather have it in our city is huge compliment to us. So if we can make that happen and it works out, I would like you two to take the lead on that and see what you can do.
Okay, or Norman and I could.
Either,
I
either
think
one.
Lorna's got, I think Lorna has her plate full.
Okay, and that's fine. That's fine.
So-
But I would like to
Or
see
Brian.
what
I'll
we
help.
can do to make that happen.
Okay. Oh, so
Brian's always flying around doing it.
yeah, he's.
Well,
Brian, you got anything?
Well, I will tell you that my family always likes to give back, and as the holiday season's coming up, so Thanksgiving, when I was living in Colorado before I moved to Texas, we would always get families in needs, names of families in needs. If there is any family with needs,
Talk to
we would
Chief.
love to help and provide meals or whatever we can.
Talk to Chief about that because I think
Yeah.
he does a canned food drive.
Correct. Yep.
So yeah, talk to him about that.
Do a little bit more than that.
Yeah, there's a huge presence in Rockwall County as a whole between the different cities that they do a lot of that. So check with Chief Simmons, because I know Roy City, we had a lot of different businesses that would donate. The kids in all the schools would have a competition for, I think, a pizza day.
Yeah.
We would end up getting 4 and 5 truckloads of food from each school.
That's awesome.
And then we separated it out to individual meal packages for families. And then one of the local businesses donated all the turkeys.
Great.
We had a huge thing over there. I know some of the other cities do the same thing.
It's and right now because of people not, supplies are low.
Yep.
Let's just say that, because even my husband's struggling at getting product out. So, it's kind of hard to find things.
Turkeys right now are very hard.
Yeah. So, that's it.
Norman, what you got? Nothing? Miss Lorna?
Nothing.
What? Huh?
Usually you're an hour.
All right, guys, it is 9:16. We've met everything on the agenda. Meeting adjourned. Whatever, pirate boy. Hey, you and the eyeliner, dude. I was like, he makes a good pirate. But you know what? Change the hat and he would have been a hell of a rock star.
I'm going to Mexico, in Puerto Vallarta, for celebrating.
And you're going to dress like that too?
Wait till you see my
I guess tomorrow will be asleep.
I just texted my wife.
No.
My wife just said she's at the neighbor's house having fun. I'm like,